Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime. This Thursday, it's a classic NFC showdown when the Chicago Bears head to the nation's capital to take on the Washington Commanders. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game. It's the Bears and the Commanders on Thursday Night Football, and it's on Prime. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a mid-sized SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander boasts 3 spacious rows with available seating for up to 8. Its available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain unlimited and platinum trims delivers the power, acceleration, and efficiency so your family can take on any adventure. There's even a standard digital key, a panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen, so you always arrive on time. Live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Well, here we are. Another Wednesday.
Kyle, your voice got deeper.
Kyle, you got better looking. Yeah, I mean, continue.
Better last name, too.
That's true. Welcome in. This is Andy Holloway.
So much easier to say that.
Yeah,
Then Kyle. Get a better name, Kyle.
that's step one of today's show, is just insult the dedicated leader of this podcast.
That is correct.
Acceptable to me. Mike Wright is here. Matthew Betz. This trifecta has never. Have we ever done the three of us?
A pod?
A pod?
No.
So this is
First time.
Breaking ground.
Yeah, fresh water. Let's see if we can swim. But big show today. Trade targets. Dynasty trade targets. I love a good trade. I can't convince anybody to trade with me anymore, but I like trading. I feel like some people in our leagues, Mike, have become uninspiring. Like they're not hitting the trade market the way they should. I don't get the incoming deals.
Interesting.
Don't you feel like that every league's got a few people that just aren't moving and shaking?
Are you talking in our dyno?
Sure. There are a lot of people that will go out there in a dynasty league, Betsy, and they'll pronounce, "I'm ready for a rebuild." But then they wait. They wait for something to happen, and they don't go out and they don't pursue the trade.
Because it's the weird strategy of they feel like if they're starting the talk, they're coming at it from a position of weakness.
Yeah, but no talk at all.
It's wrong.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, that's a lot of people feel like that.
What do you think, Betsy?
Yeah, I mean, specifically on the rebuild thing, if you're the one initiating the rebuild, like, I'm not going to you for the offers. Like, you come to me, okay? I do think that's the way that it should be done. Now, most of the Dynasty leagues I play in are just true sickos that just love Dynasty more than anything. So my leagues are fun because there's just so many trades going on that sometimes it's actually overwhelming how many trades are going on in my leagues. But it seems like every morning I wake up, there's an offer in my inbox, which I love, and that's what makes Dynasty so fun.
Well, sounds great.
That's delightful.
That sounds really good.
We're in that weird part of the season, though, at least for Dynasty, where it's like, okay, you're 4 weeks in. Even if you're 1-3 and you're looking, I have a great roster. I mean, maybe you want to shake some things up, but you're kind of in that zone of you don't know 100% if you're in or if you're out. So it feels like, well, I don't want to make a trade right now just in case I'm out later. And then I've sold some future assets and I made a mistake doing that because now I'm playing for next year because we get 3 weeks later, I get 3 more losses. So I think it's just a tricky time of year. But we want to get people's brains thinking about different ways of trading. We're each bringing forth two potential trade candidates or potential targets. One, and it's from a perspective of being a contender or someone who's looking at the future. And also, as with all trades, finding the target of a player is not always the first way to go about it. You want to find a team that you can
compatible.
Yeah, you're compatible with, and help make each other better. Or sometimes you just go flex that credit card and you buy a player with a bunch of future assets. But these are some guys that we think could help your team right now or maybe in the future.
Well, I like the fact that we're breaking it up into the categories of the rebuild focus, the future focus team, and the contender team, because strategies are obviously tremendously different. I in our main Dynasty League, I am in the contender category. And so the way that I've approached trades, and I've just set ablaze all of my future assets. I mean, this team, what year are we in our Dynasty? 8 or 9?
Around there, yeah.
I've been a buyer for 9 years.
Yeah, because you keep finding Dynasty players in your cushions. Like, these are guys
Poor Daryl Patterson a couple years ago.
These guys their Dynasty value is dead over the offseason.
Thielen.
Raheem Mostert. And then,
baby.
And then you reach down in the cushion, you're like, a quarter. And then it's like, I have a guy I can play this week. So
it definitely feels like that.
You've gotten pretty fortunate with a few of those players who have been able to sustain your run without it. Because when you take everything out on credit, eventually the collector comes.
That's what they tell me.
Yeah,
that's what they tell me.
They will.
I'm still on that 0% interest portion of the credit card. I mean,
3 years from now. We'll see.
No! Oh no! The minimum payments are going to be a lot of draft picks. But no, trades in Dynasty are so fun because there are no bigger bets to be made, right? Like the permanence of those trades. We've had now so many big deals in our main Dynasty League that, when they went through, you have that perception that somebody blew the other person out of the water. And it's been completely proven the opposite over time. And so you're making big bets that you don't get to undo. And I think it's a tremendous amount of fun. And I think fantasy football in some ways exists as this tool to allow people to brag about things that they really shouldn't be able to brag about.
Yeah, that's fair.
To be super proud of the maneuvers. And Dynasty affords you that more than anything, because if you believe in a player and you make the bet and you go pursue them and then you pick them up, Betsy, you can brag for the rest of your life.
And I plan to do that with all my league mates. It's funny. We all have, in my leagues, we all have that one guy that you're like, man, you got him in the third round of a rookie draft or a second round of a rookie draft. For me, that guy is Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I'm going to keep letting my league mates know about that one for a while. But yeah, I love it. You call your shot. And what's funny is we've talked on the show about Dynasty trade calculators and how they're maybe a good starting point. But I mean, in a year, everything looks different, right? You don't really know who won or lost the deal. So the most important thing, I think, when you're talking trades, does it help your team? Does it help the person you're trading with or not? And if it does, it's a good trade.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And it's funny you say, you found the diamond in the rough with Amon-Ra in a later round. I wonder how hard it would be to pry him from your hands in a Dynasty league.
Over my dead body.
See, because you have the investment. So it's like they came up in your farm system. Yes, and they're homegrown and they're yours. And it's like if someone comes after that player, fat chance, man.
Exactly, man.
All right, quick question of the day as we get started. This one is worth some good discussion here. What NFL offense has surprised you the most through the first month of the fantasy season? Betsy, why don't I let you go first?
Yeah, man. Entering, the year, I think a lot of people were pretty excited about what Dameon Pierce could be, and everyone just kind of threw the passing game from Houston to the side and said, well, we like, C.J. Stroud for Dynasty. Let's just see what he can be. But man, Dameon Pierce's value has sunk like a ship, and the passing game is awesome. So this Texans offense, specifically the passing attack, I think really is a nice surprise. I mean, offensively, they're 13th in yards per play. Stroud is 13th in the NFL among all quarterbacks in EPA per play. Dude is on pace for over 5,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. Currently the second most passing yards by a rookie in their first 4 NFL games behind only Andrew Luck. So the dude's balling. I know Mike and Kyle were big on CJ Stroud in the pre-draft process. Sir. He looks awesome. And it's crazy that they are just showing so much confidence in their rookie that they're choosing to pass even behind an offensive line that has been, for most of the season thus far, trotting out 4 out of 5 backups. So I think CJ Stroud is legit. I like Tank Dell. He's flashed a bunch. Nico Collins has been a fun breakout as well. So, man, it's crazy. Like, we thought Dameon Pierce was the guy, and I still think he's talented, but these wide receivers, this passing game is so fun.
Yeah, it was wild to see. I think the what was it, like 30-3 or something like that. It was an absolute blowout. And Stroud was, look, Pierce had a better game than he's had given the format, but it was still Stroud. Like, the offense was still running through CJ Stroud. And as much as I loved Stroud, like, I'm like, this is my number 1 quarterback this year. My historic, going off of, just what rookies have done, my under on his season-long passing yardage is
not looking good.
It's not looking great.
We're going to lose that one, Mike.
Yeah, but the Bryce Young one is on track to hit, but CJ Stroud just coming in here like Superman.
Well, it's just, a testament to his ability, his leadership, the trust he's established with the coaching staff that lets him throw the ball like this. I mean, you could insulate a player with no offensive line and give them no opportunities. We're sitting here coming fresh off of a Daniel Jones performance where he was sacked 10 times, where the team was sacked 11 times, and it's like, you're going to make every excuse in the book for Daniel Jones because the offensive line wasn't performing, and yet Stroud is not forcing us to make those excuses for him. The same ones we're making for Dameon Pierce, the same ones. And I think it's going to prove to the benefit of Dameon Pierce in the long run, the more that he shows, I'm sure that the strategy of opposing defenses coming into this season was to force CJ Stroud to beat you. Don't let Dameon Pierce and the way that they were going to play this offense be the catalyst for a victory for Houston. Let the rookie beat you. And now it's, whoops, like now he can.
Change plans.
He can. So you saw more effectiveness from Dameon Pierce last week, and I'm with you. When we were opening the show, Doc Betsy, it was like I went to type Houston in. It was like the first team that came to mind. I'll go ahead and go right into the Daniel Jones side. I mean,
yes.
It says, which offense surprised you the most? This is to the bad side, but the Giants are a train wreck. 31st in yards per play, 28th in success rate, 32nd in EPA per play, 32nd in points per game. You've got running backs leading the team in receiving. You've got quarterbacks leading the team in rushing. And it's hard to watch. And I know Saquon's not there, but you kind of have a plethora of BC level receivers that you can't get the ball to down the field. Your offense has not utilized Darren Waller in any coherent way.
Is
this an indictment on Brian Daboll and what he's put together for this roster, or is this injuries, or what are you attributing this to?
I'll jump in. I think it's a combination of factors, I think. I mean, they dropped the stat on the broadcast on Monday night. I can't remember what they said, but they used so many picks on offensive linemen over the last few years, and they just haven't hit. Now, I know left tackle Andrew Thomas was out this past week. He's been dealing with injury, but still, they haven't been able to solidify the offensive line. And, I mean, that just matters so much in the NFL, especially when you have a guy like Daniel Jones who can't overcome, a bad situation by himself the way a Mahomes can, obviously. So, yeah, it's that. And then, they kind of just, at wide receiver this offseason, they signed a lot of dudes, but they didn't sign, any actual dudes. You know what I mean? They kind of just pieced it together with, Paris Campbell and Isaiah Hodgins, and those guys are, fine wide receiver 3-4s on NFL teams, but they don't have a guy in the receiver room. Now, Darren Waller was supposed to be the guy. That has not gone well. I don't know why they're not using him. It's baffling. There's no end in sight. And, they made the playoffs last year, which was a fun story, but they definitely overperformed. And now they're kind of paying the price with their schedule. They were rewarded with more difficult schedule moving forward here because you make the playoffs. So Yeah, it's tough. I mean, their games are borderline unwatchable. They feel like the Broncos of last year, where the NFL is just force-feeding us Giants games in primetime. We only have this week off, but next Sunday night, we hit the Bills and the Giants in
Daniel Jones
primetime.
is now what? 1-10, 1-11 on primetime games?
Something ridiculous. Yeah, it's been rough.
And they paid him big money. And when you look at it from the perspective of long-term, he's the guy right now in New York. And so I don't know when we're going to be talking about dynasty value at the wide receiver position in New York. Seems like it might be years away. The last time they spent on a guy, they got Kenny Golladay.
Woof.
So maybe they thought they could,
Sure.
and now it feels like you wish you could melt about three of them together into one alpha, and you can't do it. So definitely surprising. What do you think about the Waller
I was just trying to look it up
situation
here.
in a dynasty format?
Oh, I think part of the problem here for Waller is, like, if I'm looking at it right, we have 31% of his targets from the slot. And it's like Daniel Jones only throws to his slot wide receivers. I mean, the Wan'Dale Robinson the last 2 weeks getting targets, Paris Campbell getting targets when he's on the field. Be more creative, like get Waller involved there, because I think that he is still good enough to be that type of a target where you force feed him 7+ a game and let the player make it happen. I mean, you traded for him. You traded a 3rd-round pick for him. He's bigger and athletic, more athletic than linebackers. Someone has to figure out a way to get him going, and it's looking at the tendencies, I think, of your quarterback and moving people around.
Well, let me ask you this, Betsy, before we move on to Mike's selection. In a dynasty league, we're going to be talking about trade for targets for contenders. Does Darren Waller fit that bill? Are there people out there that are kind of going to throw the towel in on this season? Maybe the Waller manager is the Musgrave, Laporta, Ferguson, alternate is starting to get the starting opportunity for those rosters. Do you think that when Saquon comes back and the offensive line gets solidified a little bit, there are brighter days for Waller, or are you too scared away by maybe the injury he's dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it for sure. With the hamstring issue, that's kind of going to be a season-long thing that he'll continue to play through, but sort of manage in the background. But, the numbers on Waller entering the season kind of warned us maybe that the end is coming sooner than we think. I mean, his yards per out run dropped 5 years in a row, didn't force a single missed tackle last season, now switching teams with a mobile quarterback. So maybe we got over our skis on like the camp hype, with the New York Giants,
sure,
with Waller. So there was some warning signs. So, and then you think about, historical data with like the redraft ADP landscape, where these kind of like 2nd tier, 3rd tier tight ends that go in this like 5th to 8th round range, the hit rate on those has been so bad. And that's kind of where he landed, like the tight end dead zone, right? It's like either Kelsey, Andrews when he's healthy, or just punt it off, right? And that kind of feels like where we're at. And now we've got some young, exciting names coming up of, like you said, Musgrave, Laporta, Kincaid, like all those guys just have so much more, obviously, youth, but I think upside too compared to Darren Waller moving forward. So even with the performance, I don't think I'm trying to buy low personally, even if I'm a contender.
All right, Mike, what NFL offense has surprised you the most through the first month?
It's the one that I think has surprised the world and NFL watchers as a whole. The Cincinnati Bengals. It is not a regression. It is a absolute dumpster fire. 31st in scoring, ahead of only the Giants, and which, if we had placed our bets that the Bengals will be ahead of the Giants in scoring, I mean, we would have all taken that bet. So they're still there.
But if you had bet behind the Jets and Zach Wilson,
but just dead last in yards per play, fantasy is demoralizing people, and these are all in redraft, and I mean in Dynasty, just the way that they're valued. High draft. These are high value players. Joe Burrow. Betsy, did you put? Is he really the quarterback 31?
He is.
Yeah, he's had fantasy finishes of like 31, 28, 29.
The quarterback. There's 32.
I know.
There's 32 starters.
That's where we're at.
Good Lord. And then, I mean, Joe Mixon's barely a top 20 running back. Both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are outside of the top 25. And they are broken. This past week was Tennessee. That's the game. That's where you get right. Is like you've had some struggles. You need a couple free throws to get your
confidence,
get your moxie,
layups.
your confidence, get everything back. And it was, I mean, when you miss your free throws, like you could barely look at yourself in the mirror.
This wasn't missing the free throw, Mike. This was throwing the ball over the backboard too. It was
Yes.
It was like, oh, if I had not taken that free throw, I would think better of myself to begin with. I mean,
yes.
It was an abysmal performance.
So
And those numbers are terrible. I mean, if you drafted Jamar Chase 101, he's the wide receiver 27. I mean, we all know Chase is going to be fine in the long run.
term, yes.
But in the short term, he's just a pain station. And he's mad. Do you see his comments?
Oh, yeah.
I'm always open. I'm always something open.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's not all, just like for Daniel Jones, it's not all Daniel Jones. The Bengals offensive line, like the memes are back. I don't know if you guys have seen the
Penei Sewell?
the Sewell drawing of, it's like Joe Burrow and Sewell passing to anyone, and it works. Joe Burrow with random tackle throwing to Jamar Chase, it's him getting knocked over, and that's currently where they are. And they are broken, man. They are so broken.
Yeah, and it's been awful. And it makes you, do they miss a tight end in this offense right now? That's been able to. I mean, it's a small thing, but we saw, Hayden Hurst get it done. So, fantasy wise, though, is this just a blip on the long term radar, Betsy? Like, is this a shock, but should be mostly ignored for the sake of decision making in Dynasty?
Yeah, I think so for Dynasty. These guys are all, I mean, Joe Burrow's a top 10 guy. Jamar Chase, you could argue top 2, top 3, whatever order you want to put those guys in. And then Higgins is still solid as well. And he's got the contract thing coming up that makes the situation a little uncertain, but still super talented and has proven that. So I think it is a blip on the radar. The struggles, though, really I think come down a lot. And it's not the only thing, but Joe Burrow's calf issue. Like, it just reminds you how much that mobility matters to this offense. He was actually running quite a bit last year, and not Lamar Jackson type stuff, obviously, but, picking up 25, 30 yards a game here and there, running some design runs with him, stuff like that. That is just gone. And he's just a sitting duck back there. That's probably not going away for another month, maybe. So you're kind of just stuck. And like, the tough part is, whether it's redraft or dynasty, like, you drafted these guys to play them, and you probably don't have better options. So you're kind of just stuck.
Yeah, it's been a weird, and the schedule's bad the rest of this season. Like, I do think the way the division shakes out with, Cleveland and Baltimore, I worry this is going to end up a lost season for them. They could turn it around quickly. I mean, it was a tough start to last year, but it's been tough to watch, man. We want our old-fashioned roaring Cincinnati Bengals.
I would like some points as one who is, for my dynasty team, is heavily invested in the Bengals.
Yeah. So, all right, let's take a quick break and be back with some trade talk.
Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime. This Thursday, it's a classic NFC showdown when the Chicago Bears head to the nation's capital to take on the Washington Commanders. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game. It's the Bears and the Commanders on Thursday Night Football, and it's on Prime. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
You need a vehicle that can meet your family's needs, and Toyota has you covered. Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a midsize SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander never makes you choose between passengers and cargo. You can fit both with ease. With 3 spacious rows and available seating for up to 8, and legroom that makes even long trips comfortable. With Grand Highlander's available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain on limited and platinum trims, you can be confident you have the power, acceleration, and efficiency needed for almost any adventure your family can cook up. And you'll get where you're going in style with a modern, spacious cabin that's perfect for both playdates and date nights. Impressive tech upgrades take the new Grand Highlander to the next level, including a standard digital key, an available panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen. Don't just live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.
All right, we are talking trade targets on today's Dynasty Fantasy Footballers podcast. And what are some of the things you look for in terms of a good trade target, somebody that you want to attach to your roster?
Are you talking about the actual target of the player?
I'm talking about, like, what are some of the things you're thinking about when you're going out to pursue or going out to target somebody for your roster?
I mean, generally speaking, I'm looking, if I want a wide receiver, I'm either moving, 2 lesser players for them or maybe a running back for that, but which is very tough because if you play Dynasty, running backs are, like, if you have 2 starting running backs on your Dynasty squad, you're doing pretty well. It's difficult to manage to have 2, let alone 3. But the things that I'm thinking about, like, so I'll start with my contender pick here. I'm trying to get with a name that is, I think, still has some time left. He's still producing at a high level, but because he's 31, he's not looked at the same way as, like, go get Zay Flowers or something like that, of a new hotness player who is young and producing. Even though Zay Flowers versus who I'm going to talk about is Tyler Lockett, because I can't stop talking about Tyler Lockett, like, people are going – it's going to be much easier to trade for Lockett right now than it is to trade for Zay Flowers because people are – well, he's 31. Jackson Smith-Njigba is on the team, even though he's not currently being used. That's kind of like this boogeyman in the background of JSN is coming to take Tyler Lockett's job, even though Lockett is technically under contract for 3 more seasons, but – he leads Seattle in target share, red zone targets, routes run. The guy he gets it done. I think he had the most yards this past week. Metcalf had the really nice touchdown reception. But Lockett, we've already had a 2 touchdown game this year. He's still a really, really good player, and because he's old, it's just so much easier to go and get these players to boost your team because they're not thought of as the regard for them is, well, they're the career's on the downtrend. I want guys who are the career they're headed up. Like, it's okay to have a player who's headed on the downside of their career. They're still producing.
If you believe in 2 years worth of Tyler Lockett, which I like to think of, when I'm trading for a dynasty contender type of player, I like to think of it in that 2 years of production window. It could be a really good time. I mean, the peripheral metrics that you're talking about with Lockett, yes, he's been performing. He's been out there a ton, but he's also been single digits 3 or 4 games this year. JSN not heavily involved, but he's the narrative you can lean into when trying to acquire Tyler Lockett, and they're going into the bye week. So, I mean, you have an opportunity to take at least a glance in that direction if you believe. I don't know how to feel about Lockett long term. But I like me an old guy in Dynasty. So, Betz, what do you think about Mr. Lockett?
Yeah, I'm biased. I'll be honest. I've loved Lockett for the last couple seasons because he's an auto pick, right? To outperform his ADP, always a value, always undervalued in any form of fantasy you play. And it kind of feels like that again this year. Now, like you said, it hasn't been great, and we kind of have that week 1 just complete dud that happened against the Rams. So
sure,
that whole week can kind of just throw it to the side. But, since then, he's been fine. Hasn't been great, has had that 1 week that he's been great. But the underlying numbers is really what it's about, as Mike pointed out. The Jackson Smith-Njigba thing is very confusing. They took him to just have this little role. Now, historically, after the bye, we see those guys tend to have a better role, so maybe that happens. But Tyler Lockett's not leaving the field, right? He's out there in 2 wide receiver sets. He obviously is out there in 3 wide receiver sets. And they've actually skewed more pass heavy in the last couple seasons with Geno, which is just crazy to even fathom they would let Russ go and let Geno just, take over the offense. But that's what they've done. So I like it as a contender, like, especially considering the price. I mean, you could probably get him if someone's looking to, they start at 1-3 and they're trying to move on from him. If you're trying to get him, a second-round rookie pick probably gets it done.
I bet it does.
Which, if you're a contender, is worth it to me.
I have an even older wide receiver.
Which
So,
I would
the
not
oldest.
trade a second for.
Yeah, I was going to ask you whether you would trade a second for him if you needed him this year. I'm bringing up Adam Thielen because he is a dirty,
Yes,
nasty,
I'm
Old.
so old.
highly productive receiver. I mean, we talked about C.J. Stroud's performance earlier in the show with the Houston offense surprising. Bryce Young looks bad, like actively.
He looks outmatched.
He
right
looks
now.
he looks small. He looks like he is having a hard time going through progressions, and he is leaning on Adam Thielen. And it's likely that he's going to make some adjustments and become a better passer over the course of the year. We saw what Thielen did with Andy Dalton. And Adam Thielen, unless the team you're trying to acquire him from is dependent upon him and a contender, I mean, you should be able to trade anything for him. And this should look like an opportunity for somebody else with Adam Thielen to cash in on a player they never thought they'd be able to trade for value ever again.
Yeah, I feel like if you have Thielen and you're not a contender, you're just like, yeah, that's everyone's going to be tricked because he's putting up value. So the question then, I guess, if Andy's bringing him up then saying, Adam Thielen, you believe that he can extend this and continue to have some success, which he's been great. Wide receiver 10 currently with a wide receiver 4 finish in week 3. Looking at, but he's not a grandfather. It's a bit. He's 33, but that's old for an NFL wide receiver. And we have seen these guys slow down as the season goes on, the wear and the tear on your body. And then, after the bye week here, because after the bye week, Houston, still somehow not a great matchup for wide receivers. The Colts, Chicago, that's great, but then Dallas, it's kind of it's a hot and cold situation here. So Andy, you're confident though that Adam Thielen is going to continue what he's doing?
They made a strangely profound financial commitment to an older
That is
player in
true.
Adam Thielen. His skill set and what he's doing for this offense is being a consistently open, underneath, go-to receiver, a la later career Larry Fitzgerald was for the Arizona Cardinals. And look, sometimes you can put these players on your roster, and I mentioned Cordero from a couple of years ago and Raheem Mostert from a couple of years ago, and you can be surprised at the value they provide your team, the depth they provide your team for multiple years in their – look, you're not going to ever trade him for anything. Once you get him, he's going to expire on your team. He's going to go to the grave. But that's exactly why you can get him for nothing. I mean, you said you would not trade a second-round draft pick for him.
Correct.
Now, Betz, are you in that same camp? If you're a contender with,
I feel like if you
double flex.
I was gonna say full PPR, double flex. You need it. I guess I would prefer to trade a third. Or
The highest endorsement for Adam Thielen in a dynasty league ever. I guess.
So.
But the thing is, though, is even if you do have some concerns about as the season goes on, Jonathan Mingo is a guy people were kind of excited about. He hasn't done anything. He's kind of a prospect that some people were in, some people were out. Didn't have the cleanest profile, whatever. He could emerge. Bryce Young could get better. Targets could go different places, whatever. That can happen. But even if you're trading for Adam Thielen, like if you're a contender, you're probably trading for him as like your wide receiver 5, maybe 6 on a dynasty roster. And if things fall apart, you can plug him in on bye weeks, injuries, stuff like that. So even if you don't think this is the real thing that's going to happen all year, I still think there's some value.
Let me give you a different perspective with trading for Adam Thielen. Have him thrown in the back of a deal. Just
a little add-on?
Just have him be the add-on piece that nobody cares to give up. That's all I'm saying. You underestimate sometimes, or at least players underestimate the depth necessary to win in Dynasty on a regular basis, to sustain injuries, bye weeks. If you're starting, multiple flex positions, you're full PPR, at some point in time, you are grasping for targets. And here's this old man who just has bags of targets he's bringing around with him. So that's what I would do. I'd have him tossed into a deal, and then you might have a little bit of a surprise value there for you. And I would give up the second if I was looking for – if I'm a contender, that's a late second. And that's going to be 50-50 shot on that player you're picking up. So I'd be willing to do it. Now, Betsy, give me your contender target.
Yeah, the running back landscape is horrible. If you have CMC, you feel great. It's hard to find many other running backs that you feel great about starting on a weekly basis, especially in Dynasty. So one of those guys that I love for his role is David Montgomery, who, is 26 years old. He signed that 3-year contract, $18 million in the offseason. We think, okay, he's going to be the guy. And then they draft Jahmyr Gibbs 12th overall, and we're like, oh no. What is Montgomery's role? Is he actually their Jamal Williams? What is he going to be? And through 3 games that he's been active out of the 4, they've kind of told us, he has his role and Jahmyr Gibbs has his role, which I think there's a chance as the year goes on that Gibbs could continue to, slowly see more work. But we did that all last year, right, with DeAndre Swift, and it just never happened. Now, I'm not making the comparison between those two guys, but this coaching staff has shown us they kind of prefer to have guys have their own roles, and they just kind of work that way. David Montgomery has seen 21, 17, and 34 total opportunities in his 3 games. He's third in the NFL in carries inside the 10-yard line
Mike,
and
you're
5-yard line.
Head.
Despite missing a game. This is the Jamal Williams role of last year, but he's better than Jamal Williams. And so if someone is looking to get out from David Montgomery, because the running back landscape is so tough, we lost Dobbins, we lost Chubb, there's timeshares everywhere. David Montgomery's role is safe, and you guys may have heard of this website. It's called thefantasyfootballers.com.
Nice.
In our tools that we have on there, looked up the remaining strength of schedule, for running backs using our schedule adjusted metrics. And look, we're only 4 weeks in, so this can be a little bit tricky to read into for the rest of the season. But Detroit is number 1 on the list. They've got matchups against Carolina this week, Las Vegas, Chicago twice, Denver, Green Bay, who David Montgomery just destroyed. These guys are going to be favored in a ton of games, and that means it's David Montgomery time.
Let me put it to the test then. You're a contender. You're getting underwhelming results from Ramondre Stevenson. You're going for a title. I see your face, Betsy. That face was a grimace. And that's the face of a man facing the future potential of a player or the present value of a player. Are you making that trade?
Straight up for Ramondre?
Straight up.
I don't think I would.
Mike? You had a lot of nice things to say about Montgomery until we got to that one.
Why can't I just give up a late first for him? How about that?
Well, you could. You could give up a late first for him.
And I get to hold Ramondre?
Yeah, you can hold Ramondre.
Perfect.
Yeah,
until the person goes, you know what, I don't want you first, I want Ramondre.
Yeah, then I'm in a tough position.
Then you're in a tough spot.
It's hard because Ramondre, how old is Ramondre? I mean, he's
young. He's only in his 3rd season, I believe. I'll look it up.
Ramondre Stevenson is 25 years old.
Yes, because it's not a huge difference between him and Montgomery.
That's actually surprising.
It's a huge difference between him and Montgomery.
What, age-wise?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not production.
I thought you meant production.
No,
and I was going to ask what NFL you were watching.
No, I was shaking my head during the argument because I think Montgomery's a top 12 running back now, like rest of season.
So David Montgomery is 26 years old. They're 5 months apart.
Dude.
That's crazy. I honestly had no idea.
And
because
Ramondre,
he feels old. In Ramondre, it felt like this was the beginning of it.
Yeah,
it was supposed to be.
And this is Ramondre. And Ramondre will have another off season of having to matrix dodge.
Who turns down that deal?
Bullets.
I don't think anybody turns that deal
I think you
down.
could get that through, and I think that's. I think it's the right move.
Well, and
if you're playing to win right now, I mean, it's really hard because look, we laid out Montgomery has a real good schedule coming up. So does Ramondre. Like, I think it's after this week things really open up for fantasy running backs on Patriots versus whoever they're playing.
Dameon
Pierce or Montgomery?
Yes.
I'll take Montgomery.
I would take Montgomery.
23 years old.
Yeah, but he's 23 and he still doesn't feel safe. Like, Montgomery is on the 2nd contract. Pierce still feels like they might go into the next year's draft and take a day 2 running back.
They love him.
Yeah.
Head coach loves Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, you love players and then you fall in love with a player in the draft.
Just bringing it up because Pierce has
Dan
been
Campbell loves
Well, look,
Montgomery.
So what do you do?
Yeah, he does.
What do you do with Jahmyr Gibbs? I mean, in the grand scheme of the conversation, just because everybody wants to talk about him every minute of every day, Montgomery's 26 years old. If he has a dominant season, if he's a top 10 fantasy running back this year, why wouldn't we see more of the same next year? Why wouldn't we see a repeat of, Ingram, Kamara type of situation for multiple years?
What do you do with Jahmyr Gibbs?
I mean, I think right now, if this is the feeling on Gibbs, I'm poking around to see what it takes to get him. Even understanding the range of outcomes, if I'm a non-contender, if I'm just rebuilding, he's the perfect rebuild guy, right? Because you can wait through all this stuff this year with Dave Montgomery and be frustrated and not have to worry about it. But knowing the draft capital, the production, the receiving profile, I mean, everything we've all talked about all offseason, it's still there. And so I think if that's the feeling, if there is a small window here to go out and get him, I think I'm still doing it.
Okay. All right. So we are looking now towards the rebuilding, the future-focused squads. Mike, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I think I like bringing this player up because I think it's an interesting strategy that you are inheriting some risk, definitely. But it's Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers. And yes, Mike Williams, who just tore his ACL. That's who I am talking about right now. Look at his overall situation. He is a bit older. He will be turning 30 next year, so we're towards the end of Mike Williams' career. The contract situation is no more guaranteed money next year. His cap number does balloon to $32.5 million next year, but the dead cap's at 12.5, which to me looks like that feels like a wide receiver who gets a lower extension from the Chargers. Like, they take advantage of the fact that he's hurt right now, try and give him a little bit more security for the next few years. Again, that's my take. But if someone was a contender and they have Mike Williams now and they need another piece, like just someone who they can start, you might be able to get Mike Williams for very, very cheap. He was on pace for 108 receptions and 1,400 yards at the end of those 3-point whatever games that he played. And no one's value, like his value is the lowest right now that it's been in forever. Just whenever a player is hurt, the value absolutely plummets. I mean, you could maybe say the same about Nick Chubb because we got some somewhat positive news, about his that it wasn't a total knee destruction. But like you could trade, it's almost like flipping a house. Like, I'm going to pay under for Mike Williams because I know that next offseason, should he remain on the Chargers, that's where the risk comes in. But if he's on the Chargers, all offseason reports, Mike Williams ahead of schedule. Mike Williams looking great. And then you take that player that you traded low for, then you just trade him high. Like, he doesn't even play a single game.
This is not performance on the field.
No.
This is a literal buy the stock low, sell it on its way up.
100%.
Interesting.
Like, he may never even play a game for you. But
now that I can get behind. I can get behind him never playing a game for me because, look, if I was in the situation where I had Mike Williams, I'd be terrified that I'd have nothing forever.
But if you're rebuilding, whatever, man. You just take on this low-level risk that it would be a massive reward.
Interesting.
Should all those things happen? And Betz was laughing when I was saying it because he knows next offseason, like, this was an early enough ACL tear that in June, July, it's going to be Mike Williams looking great.
He will
ahead
be
of
on
schedule.
he will be on the edge of 30.
Yes.
So please, I don't want him playing for me. If I can flip him, now he's a pretty big dead cap hit.
Yeah.
So he'll be on this roster.
That's what I was saying.
For one more year.
The numbers are strange.
Don't we think?
His salary cap explodes. That's the 32.5. If they cut him, it's a 12.5.
So they'll do an
dead.
extension to try to correct the cap number?
That's what I think. I think that's what could happen for this because it's just he's still like he's still a good wide receiver for them. Like, unless maybe QJ the rest of season is totally awesome, and then
probably not.
And then they're like, well, we don't need Mike Williams. We're going to move forward with Quentin. But if that doesn't happen, this team is going to want to have good wide receivers, and I don't know. I don't know if they can find another one for as cheap as they can get Mike Williams.
Do you have some thoughts there, Betz, on where you stand on that as a target and where you think the future of Mike Williams is headed?
Yeah, I think a couple points. First one, imagine not being ahead of schedule. Literally, couldn't be me.
He's
on every
already
injury
ahead
recovery.
of schedule right now.
He's guaranteed to be ready for week 1. It's so funny when those reports come out like the day after the injury. I'm like, you don't know, man. Like anything can happen. But yes, that's just funny. And that is how it works. You will get those reports. So I think that's actually very sharp. In regards to his situation, I could see a contract where they give him an extra year or something, like you said, an extension, but they lower the number to make it team friendly. I doubt he's going to have a market if they do let him go, figure that out, as an almost 30-year-old coming off a torn ACL. So it probably is going to work best, I would say, for both sides to just bring him back on a better number. So I agree. I think that's actually a very sharp move. His value is lower than it will be, in May, June, July next year. And even if you don't want him on your roster, which his profile, these guys that come off the ACL tear, a lot of the research I've done is that these kind of bigger body, like guys that don't separate, that need to get downfield to create plays, generally struggle off the ACL in year 1. The guys that do well are kind of these slot types that can mask their inefficiencies with volume. Chris Godwin last year, Cooper Kupp a couple years ago, those kind of guys. So I'm not in on Mike Williams next year moving forward, but because of the fact that you can trade something less for him now than get more in 6 months, I think it's a very sharp move.
I like the direction you took it because I thought you were about to give me a story about his future performance.
Oh, no.
And instead it was I'm going to the garage sale and I'm picking something out that no one else noticed, and then I'm flipping it on eBay in a year.
And it might go right back to the team that you traded from. Like the contender who had Mike Williams is like, well, I want a wide receiver now who I think is going to have a ceiling. And you're like, okay, fine. I'll like, well, I want $1.20 back now for Mike Williams.
That's very funny. It is a very funny direction to take it. All right, we're going to take a quick break and come back with a couple more trade for targets in the rebuilding category.
Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime. This Thursday, it's a classic NFC showdown when the Chicago Bears head to the nation's capital to take on the Washington Commanders. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game. It's the Bears and the Commanders on Thursday Night Football, and it's on Prime. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
You need a vehicle that can meet your family's needs, and Toyota has you covered. Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a midsize SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander never makes you choose between passengers and cargo. You can fit both with ease. With 3 spacious rows and available seating for up to 8, and legroom that makes even long trips comfortable. With Grand Highlander's available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain unlimited and platinum trims, you can be confident you have the power, acceleration, and efficiency needed for almost any adventure your family can cook up. And you'll get where you're going in style with a modern, spacious cabin that's perfect for both playdates and date nights. Impressive tech upgrades take the new Grand Highlander to the next level, including a standard digital key, an available panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen. Don't just live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.
Well, my pick here for a rebuild future-focused team is a player that I took this leap on purpose on my own dynasty team. My old Thielen, Mostert, McCaffrey, and elder statesman Allen and Evans. I said to myself, you need more youth on this roster. Who's somebody you can go and pick up on the cheap that you believe in the talent of? And for me, that was Michael Wilson, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the narrative for Michael Wilson and the Cardinals entering the season was worse than it is right now. You have seen a better than expected offense. Like, they could have easily fit into the category of one of the more surprising teams in the league in terms of the way Joshua Dobbs has performed, the way James Conner and this offense has been able to move the ball on the Cowboys and the 49ers, albeit they lost last game, obviously. But I still think Michael Wilson is a player where you can kind of make him a target. 23 years old, third-round rookie, injured a bunch at Stanford, so probably would have been higher draft pick had he not been. Had a couple of big weeks, and that may get in the way of you trying to pick him up for your rebuilding team. But I think before Kyler Murray comes back, you're going to have some dips. You're going to have some ups and downs with Michael Wilson. And he really looks like the future in Arizona. They may have a high draft capital pick, and they may go out a top 20 wide receiver in the upcoming draft. But I think Michael Wilson is going to be a huge part of their future. He has passed the eye test, and Kyler Murray's coming back to this roster at some point in time. Hollywood Brown is going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2024. You're going to be waving goodbye to the Rondale Moores and Greg Dortches of the world very soon. So I think Michael Wilson under contract for a long period of time. It's interesting how he's performing better than some of these higher draft capital QJ or JSN options. What are your thoughts on Michael Wilson?
Yeah, I love the value that he had in the rookie draft season where he was kind of always the guy that I defaulted to. It's like, oh, I'm in the early third round. Michael Wilson's still there. Yep, let's do it. So I actually have a lot of him, which I'm excited about. And this is kind of another good, I think, reminder for people, and maybe for us too, that we always get stuck, I think, in like the analytical profile of a prospect of like, well, he played, 4 years in school, like wasn't an early breakout. Like this guy can't do it. We have to remind ourselves of what happened. And like Andy said, the injuries were kind of part of the story here. So yeah, he's flashed early in the process. I mean, it's a very small sample, but 2.3 yards per route run so far this year. That's fourth best among all wide receivers in this rookie class. That is an unreal number. I don't know if that's going to hold up, but anything north of like 1.75 throughout the course of the year tells you this is a talented player that can actually play. And like you said, this, situation right now, he's the only guy under contract after 2024. So he's part of their future. He's part of their plans. I think he's pretty good. I'm really interested to get your guys' takes. Do you think that they extend Marquise Brown? I know he's very tight with Kyler, obviously. They traded for him. That plus maybe adding a high draft capital guy in the first round makes me just question the ceiling. That would complicate it. Question the ceiling, but I think even all those things considered, he's a pretty strong bet, especially if you don't have to give up much to get him.
Yeah, as far as when you said this was his last year of his deal, I thought, no, they traded a first round for him. Of course they had already extended him. I have to have remembered that taking place, but it did not. So it would be, I mean, it's I guess not super shocking, but it would surprise me if they don't extend him. Hollywood's going to get a deal. So maybe they're where they are as a team at the end of the year that they would rather use their salary cap other places and then just get their third round compensatory pick because Hollywood will get himself a good deal. I lean that they bring him back.
That's where I lean.
If like on the franchise tag, if nothing else.
But Wilson's performance this year could establish him as they may be able to spend higher draft capital picks elsewhere if they feel like you can get by with Hollywood, Wilson, Rondale for the next couple of years with the tight ends. I would just kick the tires maybe after a bad game on Michael Wilson and adding that youth to your roster if you can get him cheap. Would you trade a 2024 second for Michael Wilson, Betsy?
Yeah, I think I would.
Mike?
I mean, I'm open to it. The
1,200-yard pace over the last 3 weeks for him, which is, obviously.
No, he's balling out. The thing is
kind of interesting.
Like, if I'm a rebuild team, do I have the confidence in him over the mystery box of heading into next year, which the 2024 people are saying we have a very strong wide receiver class coming up, and when those happen, that's you don't want to be without picks.
All right, Betsy, I'm really excited to listen to you talk about your trade target because it's been a rough start to the season.
This it has. It has not been good. It has actually been quite terrible for Jahan Dotson this season. He's still 23 years old. He's entering, this past year, he's entering his second season, so he's still very young. He has the first-round draft capital, 16th overall pick a couple years ago. But 40 or less receiving yards in every game this season.
That's impossible.
0.71 yards per route run. I mean, He's just out there doing cardio. It's really been bad. Now, we have to remember, before we kind of take that in, of just why were we so excited about this guy entering this season? And it's because of what he did as a rookie, right? 35 catches, over 500 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's just in 12 games. If you put that on a 17-game pace, 50 catches over 700 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's awesome for a rookie season. And specifically, when he really started to emerge down the stretch, week 13 on last year, 24% target share, 20% targets throughout run. The numbers were there. I mean, he was good. He's talented. He passed the eye test, all those things. And then, of course, now we're like, oh, it's going to be better this year. Sam Howell's going to open up the... I mean, Sam Howell's fun, right, for fantasy, but like, he's taking more sacks than Justin Fields. I don't think he's a long-term starter there. So you have a lot of risk this year with Jahan Dotson and the Commanders as a whole. But if you're rebuilding, you can afford to take on that risk. And I love the profile of Jahan Dotson coming into this year. He was a popular breakout pick for a lot of people for obvious reasons. And, it's only been 4 weeks. Let's not forget that. So while the value is low on a young player, I want to go out and see what it takes to get him.
Yeah, I guess that was going to be my follow-up question is where your confidence level is on some of these maybe comparable prospect. Like, I'm assuming you'd rather have Drake London long-term than Jahan Dotson, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to. What about Josh Downs in Indianapolis? I'm assuming you'll take Dotson over Downs.
Yeah, I'd take Dotson there.
Marvin Mims in Denver.
I lean Dotson.
Go Dotson.
You lean Dotson.
Yep.
Wandale, obviously Dotson.
Can I do that deal?
You want to trade Wandale?
Yeah. Do you have Dotson?
To get Dotson?
I've got Wandale.
Do we just have a trade go down live on the show? Andy, you have to say yes now.
I'm sorry. I wish I had Dotson.
Well, I'm going to go send it
Jalen
just
Hyatt
in case.
or Dotson?
Dotson.
Dotson.
Yeah,
still,
Dotson.
Yeah.
It's been a rough start, but I think we know the potential. You'd really like to see that breakout game show itself at some point soon so that you can encourage yourself if you are a Jahan Dotson dynasty manager and not be down in the dumps. I mean, do you think Sam Howell's going to be the quarterback a year from now, or are we going to do the same offseason dance?
Man, they need to get someone right in there. Like,
someone has been the name of their starter for like 5 years.
Jacoby Brissett might be the answer for these fantasy guys that we need. He supported Amari Cooper last year. So, yeah, I don't think Sam Howell's a long-term answer. You just can't take sacks the way that he's doing right now. And, I mean, it's only been 4 games, but I don't think he's a long-term answer.
I think if the year ends poorly for Washington, it's going to be a full sweep. Like, I think Rivera will be...
will be gone?
I think he'll be relieved of his duties.
He's to his credit, he stuck with Sam Howell, and Howell had a much better performance against Philadelphia. Something that Arthur Smith is hoping happens with Desmond Ridder next week.
It will not.
Otherwise, he's going to answer a lot more questions. I was trying to look at some of these other younger wide receivers. One other name I want to throw out there. What's your take, Betsy, from what you've seen so far of Jaden Reed in Green Bay?
Oh, I love him. I really like him.
I think he's a really good player.
Yeah, he was a guy who kind of, like, the draft capital made you scratch your head where you're like, huh, 50th overall pick. Like, no one saw that coming. And then he steps right in. Second rounder in the NFL draft, yeah. And, kind of had a spotty production profile coming out. So it was like, it doesn't really match up. But everything I've seen, in the first month of the season has been awesome. He has a solidified role, obviously, as like the slot guy, but it's a young team. They're going to give him time to develop with Christian Watson and Jordan Love and all those guys. Like, I think he's for real. So I like him for what he is. I think the ceiling may be a little capped, but I like him a lot for fantasy.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, it's funny because, yes, he's got that role figured out, but this is a player that is sitting at almost 17 yards per catch through 4 weeks. And they're taking shots with him, and he's producing. So I don't know how things shake out. Like, I don't know if Romeo Doubs is a long-term answer in Green Bay. I mean, I think this year they've shown he's a go-to type of player. But I think Jaden Reed is going to surprise some people. And once you have Watson reestablished, Reed could become easily acquirable, I think, in a dynasty format potentially. Would you rather have Michael Wilson or Jaden Reed long-term?
I think I
that's a
lean
good
Jaden
one.
Reed.
Okay.
Go. Oh,
What about you, Andy?
I lean Wilson. Ah, do I? That's tough.
I think they're very similar. I think both of them are players that I think have shown professional level ability early. You know, where you see them out there in their opportunities. Wilson has benefited from obviously Hopkins getting shipped out and Reed from the injuries. Both players have delivered on what they have been able to deliver on, and you know, we're not going to be blessed with a 17-game sample yet. So I guess I kind of lean Wilson for the opportunities that I think will be there.
That's what I meant of, like,
you know, he's going to get more snaps every week.
The path to being the wide receiver one, it's far more clear for Wilson. That, like, because Dobbs is in year 2, Watson's in
year
or is
2.
Dobbs in year Dobbs is year 2 as well.
They're both year 2. Yeah.
Yeah, because so I mean, this is the wide receiver core, and maybe Jaden Reed is that good that he overtakes both of those players.
Dobbs.
Yeah, I mean, he can maybe overtake both. Like, it's possible that Watson is just a really athletic player who can hit big plays, but he doesn't ever become a true target hog. And Wilson, like, if everything, you know, if Kyler Murray stays,
that's the difference for me.
Kyler's good, and it's really hard to remember that. It's been because it feels like it's been about a decade since we've seen Kyler Murray be good on a football field. But it was just last year. I mean, Kyler was making real fantasy relevant wide receivers. Like, Hopkins was dominating with Kyler Murray last year. And I know he's 1 year older, but Hopkins, like, they're not getting anything out of him in Tennessee. Meanwhile, Kyler Murray made him look like a superstar.
I watched somebody posted the Kyler Murray highlight video over the last couple years, and it's just been so long since we got to watch him play since the injury this beginning of the season. It was encouraging. It was one of those things where, like, okay, this is a pretty special athlete out there. If they stick with him, you know, that everyone's made the jokes early about Caleb Williams and them getting the number 1 pick. Right now, it does not look like Houston or Arizona are going to be anywhere near the number 1 pick based on how they've been playing.
Yeah.
I love that this just randomly segued into a trade for Kyler Murray segment.
I think that's what happened, isn't it?
That's where we landed, yeah.
Are you in on that?
Oh, and Superflex, yeah, I mean, even single quarterback, but yeah, Superflex, I was making some deals this offseason to go get him when his value was lowest, and everyone thought, oh, they're going to move on from him. Like you said, definitely Caleb Williams there. Dude, Joshua Dobbs is frisky, and he's keeping Cardinals in games. So, yeah, will they be a top 10 pick? Probably. But are they going to be number 1? Dude, the way the Bears look and the Panthers
Carolina.
look. Yeah, I don't think so. So, yeah, I think Kyler's the guy.
Yeah, and everything that they've done with their actions, you know, we're out here in Arizona, like the support they've shown Kyler all offseason, Kyler being on the sideline every single week. He seems to be, you know, I've listened to a lot of the local beat reporters here. Like, he seems to be making a concerted effort to change his image as a leader and as, you know, the kinds of things that have separated him during the Cliff Kingsbury era and made it seem like the Cardinals would be down on him. It seems like things have changed structurally. And like Monty Austin-Fort, the general manager, their head coach, like there seems to be a lot of belief around him. And I think the rest is truly smoke. I don't think this team went into the season tanking, and I don't think this team went into this season wanting to change a quarterback. So take that for what you will, Dynasty lovers out there. But I think we're in on buying Mr. Kyler Murray on the cheap.
Yes, sir.
That is going to do it. We got through it, guys.
We did it.
Go team.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. It's been a fun one, and enjoy the football this week. We'll catch you next week.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.
Here's something every football fan should know. You can get anything you need for game day delivered with Uber Eats. Well, almost anything, because you can't get your dream running back for your fantasy team delivered with Uber Eats, but they will deliver flapjacks, tacos, six-packs, Great pass protection? No. Great pizza selection? Yes. Championship defense? No. Deodorant? Yes. Turnovers? No. But turnovers to pastry? Yes. Because that's groceries. You can get those delivered with Uber Eats too. And food from your favorite restaurants and other essentials. So this season, get anything, well, almost anything for game day by ordering on the Uber Eats app. Uber Eats is the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.